Hey there, this is Daryl again from the Jackson Fishing Team. We're going to tie a second fly for the FFI Southeast Region fly fishing get together for False Albacore, maybe bluefish, whatever else. And we're going to tie is a brown anchovy. And again, it is a Clouser fly, but you know, it's the way I'm going to tie a brown Clouser fly, and hopefully you'll give it a try, and hopefully I'll have luck with it, along with the other flies that we'll be tying in here. All right, let's take a look at the fly, and I'll explain the materials as we go along. This here is my take on a brown anchovy that, according to the captains up there, is one of the bait fish that they'll be chasing after along the shoreline. And yeah, so why don't we go ahead and tie this up and on there. So using the same style hook, which is a Saltwater hook, TMC 811S in a size 2. And we're going to go ahead and debarb it. I don't know why I do this now, especially on a species that I don't normally fish for, or have never fished for. In there. I'm sure it's because I don't want to hook myself or my fellow anglers along the shoreline. And the thread I'm going to use is some brown 210 3/0 thread. And we're just going to start this back behind the eye, and I'm going to advance it to about the 1/3 position. And as I've done other eyes, we're using a double pupil lead eye in a size medium. Got a fluorescent orange eye with a black pupil, and I usually will measure for my 1/3 point, which might be a little bit longer. On here, and then kind of make sure it's all level. And maybe perpendicular in there. And then I'll helicopter around that. And take my thread back over to the eye. I think that looks pretty good. Now if you want, you could put a little super glue there if you want. Next, you know, you could tie it all in brown using the back part all in brown, or using that brown there, but I went ahead and got some brown cast here, but I'm switching it up. For the belly, which is going to be the top here, I'm going with a camel color. You know, fish is usually dark towards the top, and as it transitions to the belly, it gets closer to white. And I'm going to take a pinch right here and cut that off. And then clean the fibers out. Maybe do an alignment here. Get rid of some of these long ones, or I could shorten them up. And then, you know, it's going to be like maybe two hook lengths. But the guides up there, they said they prefer to have them no longer than 3 inches, so I'm kind of like measuring this. Trying to keep it to under right around 3 inches or less, because they said if the bait fish are a little smaller, you're going to be ending up wanting to cut. Give my bobbin a twist, and then I'm going to give it a couple light wraps right here and try to keep it on top of the hook, and then I'll tighten it up. And by trimming my deer hair, the bucktail, before I tied it in, I don't have to cut it off now. And then we're going to give it a, you know, cinch it down here, kind of lift it up, and I'm going to do some open spiral wraps instead of touch and turn type wraps. Yeah, let's do that. Not so tight, so it doesn't flare. And I'm going to put a little Flashabou in here. You could use Crystal Flash, but I'm using a brown, staying with the theme of a brown type of thing. Fish, bait fish here. And I'm only going to want maybe 3 strands. You can do more if you want. A picture of a brown anchovy doesn't look very flashy. And I kind of wet it down a little bit so it all stays together. Kind of even those up a little bit. And then I'm going to give it some wraps going backwards. And try to keep it on one side and I'm going to kind of pull these back. and trim off the long ones so that they're just past the bucktail on there. Now I'm going to use the darker brown. And again, you don't need too much on here. These Clouser type minnows are really tied kind of sparse so that the fibers actually move in there. And I'm going to just pull out what looks like the long ones. And since I've measured this to make sure that it's not over 3 inches, so I might not have to cut them. And then I'll trim that off. Being careful not to cut myself or poke myself with the hook point, I'm going to give it some light wraps here. And then I'll tighten them down as I go forward and build up a head. And then we'll whip finish. And then I'm going to kind of pull this stuff down for now. And I'm going to use some UV thin. And I'm going to apply some where I've got this sparse thread wraps right here. And I'm going to put some up on here to kind of strengthen that in case a fish bites up that far. And then through there, and we'll cure that. And take it out here and and there we have it. My take on a brown anchovy on there. All right, Clousers are a pretty cool thing. They can imitate a lot of different types of bait fish, maybe shrimp, things like that. So I've also tied up some in pink and white, some chartreuse and white, and what we call down here probably an electric chicken or tutti frutti, which would be also a great fly for that area. So tie them up. I would even think that tutti frutti would be good for speckled sea trout, and so would this guy that we just tied. But anyway, I'm Daryl, and we'll see you on the water, and hopefully in November I'll get some footage about the False Albacore and how well I did, if I can get that thing crossed off my list. All right, see you on the water.